He boarded last because that's how it always went when you were juggling a backpack. A carry-on with a busted wheel. And a 7-year-old who had fallen asleep on your shoulder in the security line and never quite woken back up. Ethan Cole murmured apologies as he squeezed past knees and elbows, the soft shuffle of airline impatience surrounding him like static. The cabin smelled faintly of coffee and recycled air, and somewhere up front a flight attendant was laughing, too loudly at a joke she'd probably heard 100 times that day. Seat 12F, window. The same seat he always chose when he could afford it, which wasn't often. He liked the illusion of control it gave him, liked knowing that if he stared out long enough he could pretend the world still made sense, that lines were straight and destinations were fixed. "Daddy?" Lily mumbled, her cheek pressed against his collarbone. Curls flattened on one side. "I've got you, Peanut," he whispered, easing her into the seat and buckling her in before settling beside her. She clutched the frayed sleeve of his hoodie like it was a lifeline, and maybe it was. Everything about her felt lighter than it should, like she might drift away if he let go. A businessman across the aisle glanced at him with that familiar mix of sympathy and mild irritation. Single dad, economy class, red-eye flight. Ethan knew the look. He'd been wearing it himself for 3 years now, ever since the knock on the door and the folded flag and the sentence that started with, "We regret to inform you." He closed his eyes as the engine spooled up, letting the vibration travel through his bones. Flying used to feel different. It used to feel like home. When the plane lifted, Lily stirred, eyes fluttering open just long enough to peer out the window. "Are we going to see Grandma?" "Yeah," he said. "Just a couple hours." She smiled, already slipping back into sleep. Trust came easily to her. It didn't to him. Ethan stared at the wing, at the flaps adjusting with mechanical precision, and tried not to think about how many times he'd watched the same movements from a very different seat, hands wrapped around a stick instead of a juice box. He tried not to think about call signs and radio chatter and the way the sky looked at 50,000 feet, dark and endless and alive. He almost succeeded. The turbulence hit an hour in, sudden and sharp. The cabin lights flickered, and a murmur rippled through the passengers. Lily whimpered, fingers tightening in his sleeve. "It's okay," he said, forcing calm into his voice. "Just a little bumpy." The intercom chimed, then the captain's voice, steady but clipped. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the captain. We're experiencing some unexpected turbulence and a minor systems issue. Nothing to be alarmed about. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened." Minor systems issue. Ethan felt his jaw tighten. Words mattered. Pilots chose them carefully. The plane shuddered again, harder this time. Overhead bins rattled. Someone gasped. A baby started crying 3 rows back. Ethan leaned forward slightly, eyes scanning, ears straining for sounds most people never noticed. The pitch of the engines. The rhythm of the vibrations. The subtle delay between movement and correction. Old instincts stirred, unwelcome and undeniable. "Daddy?" Lily whispered, fully awake now. "I've got you," he repeated, and meant more than the moment. Minutes stretched. The captain came back on, voice tighter now. "Folks, we're going to be making a precautionary course adjustment. Our flight crew is handling it. Flight attendants, please take your jump seats." That did it. The businessman across the aisle crossed himself. Somewhere up front, a woman started crying openly. Ethan exhaled slowly through his nose. He'd sworn he was done with this life, with the math of risk and consequence. But the sky didn't forget you just because you tried to forget it. The plane jolted violently, dropping just enough to send stomachs lurching. Oxygen masks didn't deploy, but the silence afterward was worse than screaming. It was the sound of people waiting for permission to panic. The intercom crackled again, but this time it wasn't the captain. "Flight deck to cabin," a new voice said, low and controlled, edged with something that made Ethan's spine straighten. "Is there a former military aviator on board?" "Repeat, any former military aviator. Please identify yourself to a flight attendant." A ripple of confusion moved through the cabin. Heads turned. No one spoke. Ethan closed his eyes, of course. Of course it would come to this. He felt Lily's gaze on him, felt the unspoken question. He looked down at her, saw fear there, but also something else. Faith. He raised his hand. A flight attendant hurried over, crouching beside him. "Sir, are you—" "Yes," he said quietly. "Former Air Force." She swallowed. "The captain would like to speak with you." He glanced at Lily. "Hey," he said softly, brushing her hair back. "I need to help the pilots for a minute, okay? You stay right here." Her lip trembled. "Will you come back?" Always the right question. "I promise." The flight attendant hesitated, then nodded. "She can come with us. We'd prefer it." That surprised him, but he understood. No loose ends, no terrified child screaming in the cabin if something went wrong. They moved quickly past rows of wide-eyed passengers, through the narrow aisle that suddenly felt much smaller than any cockpit he'd ever known. The cockpit door opened, and the smell hit him first: warm electronics, recycled air, stress. The captain turned, eyes sharp, then froze. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Then the man in the right seat, the one who'd made the call, stood abruptly. His chair rolled back, knees knocking the console. His eyes were wide, disbelieving, and then something like awe crossed his face. "Sir," he said, voice breaking protocol and maybe a little bit of composure. "Welcome back, Viper 1. The world tilted. Ethan felt the weight of years crash into him all at once. Viper 1. A call sign he hadn't heard spoken aloud since the day he walked away. Since the day he traded wings for funeral clothes and a folded flag. The captain blinked. "You know him?" The commander, because that's what he was. Ethan realized, even in civilian uniform, nodded sharply. "I flew under him. Sir saved my life over the strait twice." Lily looked up at Ethan, eyes huge. "Daddy?" He knelt, gripping her shoulders gently. "It's okay," he said, though his own heart was pounding. "These are friends." The captain cleared his throat, professionalism reasserting itself. "Sir, we've got a cascading avionics failure. Backup systems are lagging. We're flying blind on half our instruments, and ATC just lost us on primary radar due to a storm cell. We could use experience." Ethan straightened. The old muscle memory slid into place like it had never left. Fear didn't vanish, but it organized itself, lined up behind purpose. "All right," he said. "Show me what you've got." They made space. Lily sat on the jump seat, clutching the flight attendant's hand, watching her father with an intensity that bordered on reverence. Ethan scanned the panels, the displays glitching and stuttering, the warning lights blinking like a bad dream. "Your inertial nav is drifting," he said. "You're trusting corrupted data." "We recalibrated twice," the captain said. "Not enough," Ethan replied. "You need to cross-check with raw inputs. Airspeed, attitude, engine performance. Forget the screens. Fly the plane." The captain hesitated only a second before nodding. "You've got it." They worked in sync, words few and precise. Ethan's hands hovered, never touching without permission, but guiding, suggesting, anticipating. Outside, the storm loomed, towering clouds lit from within by flashes of lightning. "Angle of attack is creeping," Ethan warned. "Ease her down there, hold it." Sweat beaded on the captain's forehead. "We're losing altitude." "Controlled descent," Ethan corrected. Better than an uncontrolled stall. Minutes passed like hours. The plane bucked and shuddered, but gradually, almost imperceptibly, the chaos began to resolve. Systems stabilized. The storm cell slid past them, a living thing reluctantly releasing its grip. ATC crackled back into their headsets, voices strained but present. "Flight 782, radar contact reestablished. We have you. Say intentions." The captain let out a breath that was half a laugh, half a sob. "We're declaring an emergency and requesting immediate vectors to the nearest suitable airport." "Roger that." Ethan stepped back, suddenly aware of the ache in his knees, the tremor in his hands now that the adrenaline was ebbing. He knelt in front of Lily, pulling her into his arms. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded fiercely. "You were like a superhero." He smiled, something tight loosening in his chest. "Just doing my job." The commander cleared his throat. "Sir," he said softly. "It was an honor." Ethan met his gaze, saw his younger self reflected there. "You did good," he said. "All of you." They returned to their seats to subdued murmurs and more than a few openly staring faces. Word traveled fast in a metal tube at 30,000 feet. An older woman leaned into the aisle as he passed. "Thank you," she said, tears in her eyes. Others echoed it, a chorus of gratitude he didn't know how to receive. He buckled Lily in, heart still racing, and stared out the window again as the plane began its descent. The city lights below looked like constellations fallen to earth. "Daddy," Lily said quietly, "and what did they call you?" He hesitated. "Viper 1, he said finally. Is that your name? It was, he said. A long time ago. Do you miss it? The question landed gently, but it struck deep. He thought of the sky, of the silence between radio calls, of the way flying had once made him feel infinite. He thought of loss, of promises made and broken, of a life that had narrowed until it fit neatly around a small girl with trusting eyes. I miss parts of it, he said honestly, but not enough to give this up. She smiled, satisfied, and leaned against him as the wheels touched down with a solid, reassuring thump. Applause broke out, spontaneous and heartfelt. As they taxied to the gate, the captain's voice came over the intercom, steadier now. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the flight crew, I'd like to extend special thanks to a passenger in seat 12F for his assistance today. We wouldn't be here without him. Lily squeezed his hand. That's you? He swallowed. Yeah, he said. That's me. When the door opened, emergency vehicles flashing outside, the commander waited for him at the front of the cabin. Sir, he said, lowering his voice, if you ever consider coming back, the skies could use you. Ethan looked down at Lily, then back at the man. I'll think about it, he said, and meant it more than he would have yesterday. They stepped into the jet bridge together. A single dad and his daughter, the past and the present walking side by side. The sky would always be there. For now, so would she.